Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you. In Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 24th, 2019, Grando Deportes. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
But Charlton, we're down here in the crossroads, just like the Bucks were in the crossroads last night trying to cross the road in front of those Raptors, and those dinosaurs weren't feeling all that good about it. But, you know, we're looking at sports, shifting seasons in hockey and baseball, basketball, football's off and mini camps and everything, and the WNBA is kicking off tonight.
Yes, it's all kicking off, and everybody's having a good time, hopefully this weekend, and being able to watch a couple of sporting events that can keep you entertained. Also a great time to give some appreciation for people that fought for this country. Memorial Day, you know, it occurs pretty much on Monday, the 27th of May, just coming up in a couple of days. Originally known as Decoration Day, it originated in the years following the Civil War, and it became an official federal holiday in 1971, and many Americans, they observe Memorial Day by visiting cemeteries and memorials and holding family gatherings, and then participating in parades. But I know we have so much freedom, Big C, and I hope we don't take it for granted. I want to say this segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, what does Memorial Day mean to you?
Well, Charlton, it's a day of thanks across this great nation, Charlton, for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defending this country of ours, and also those who have served. When we think about our men and women in our military services, all 5 branches of the military in the United States, the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines, and Air Force, Charlton. These people do it tirelessly. This is their lifelong dedication, Charlton, to serve and protect. And America needs to honor them more than just the day that's set aside for Memorial Day and Veterans Day, Charlton. It's an everyday thing. You know, it's just like Father's Day and Mother's Day. You do it every day of the year. And when we think about our servicemen, past and present, those who are no longer with us, Charlton, it's the ultimate thanks that you can always give. I know people have a thing now that they want to salute servicemen and say thank you for your service. I can remember when servicemen were coming back from Vietnam, Charlton, and America did not embrace them, Charlton. They looked at them as like, why are you guys back here? Why did you survive? And, you know, now America seems to have grown up and starting to thank servicemen and women for their service, which is always a great gesture. But it's not just a one-day thing, Charlton. It's an everyday thing to thank them.
It's an everyday thing. I do remember that the late Senator John McCain, you know, served this country great, and POTUS did say he doesn't like people that were captured. So I guess that means for a lot of the people who gave their lives that were captured, that's why they gave their lives for this great country. I guess he doesn't appreciate them, but we do. And I want to just tell you this funny story. I had a chance, probably about maybe within the last month, to run across some veterans out here in Northern California. And one guy, he was in a wheelchair. And he had one of those, it was a bag that he had to get rid of waste from his body. And he was an older gentleman, probably in his 70s. And he had a hat on that said United States Air Force. And I told him, I thank you for your service. And he said, well, thank you, young man. And there was another gentleman that also thanked him for his service too, but they were about the same age. Well, this guy had on a Dodger hat. And so I'm just assuming in San Francisco, the guy I said thank you to, he said, what are you doing with that Dodger hat on? And he said, oh, well, I grew up a Dodger fan, but I also served this country. He said, I love you for serving the country, but I hate that you're a Dodger fan. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know, sports, you know, when there's hatred in sport, there's hatred in sports, Charlton. And in California, the Dodgers and the Giants have always been synonymous for having angry fans in the stands.
Yep.
You know, that's what sports brings out. It brings out the best and the worst of people. You know, in certain states, you know, like Alabama, Charlton, you're either an Auburn fan or you're an Alabama fan, even if you're in a marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that day, you're in separate sides of the house. Maybe that week you're sleeping in separate rooms.
Or on the couch,
But,
yeah.
that's how intense sports rivalries are, Charlton. Regardless of hardships and pains in this country, sports is that genuine galvanizing force that's out there, Charlton,
Yeah.
that will make us friends and foes.
Yeah, it makes us friends and foes. And so I know a lot of times people just take for granted that we walk around free. I mean, you look around the country and around the world, President Trump is flying over again to Korea just because so many issues go on in this country. We know we have this tariff issue with Chinese, and it's making gas go up and goods and services cost more. And a lot of people, we have the wall that who's going to build. I guess POTUS said that Mexico's going to build a wall, so I guess that'll never get built. But we assume, because we are free, that it has always been that way. Big C, we're not that far from having, more outbreak around the world somewhere that takes away our civil liberties, and we have to have Big Brother come in and make sure we're all safe, like the Patriot Act. Do we think, I want to get your thoughts for down south. I know there's the Confederate flag issue, but everybody fought for the country. But even within our own country, we have division, whether it's Dodgers, Giants, veterans fighting about that, or the Confederate flag. Some people still think they need to hold that flag up, but they lost the war. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, America will never be an equality country just on basis of what people believe from past that happened hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
Thinking that they have a right to hold on to something that no longer exists.
Yeah.
But that's also part of our politics, Charlton. When you think about the Confederate flag being allowed to exist after the Civil War,
Yeah.
that was part of Americans' wrongdoing.
Yep.
It should have been eliminated at that time. One flag, one nation.
Yeah.
But to have these 13 states that still held on to that Confederacy and it being allowed, Charlton, that's part of the separation of equality in America.
Yeah, and
when you
yeah.
think that part of a culture of a country, you say you're an American, but you represent another flag. You're not American if you're representing a rebel flag, Charlton. You're not.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I want to bring up before we cover some sports, because a lot of veterans, they watch sports. There are people who actually couldn't play sports because they were drafted and they had to go serve this country. But there are times when, as a person of color, and I still remember this issue that Colin Kaepernick had, but it's going back to Tommy Smith had the same thing, Ollie had it, where many times people of color have been told, well, you're un-American because you want everyone to have liberty and justice for all. So oftentimes black men who fight for equality, we get shouted down until we're not American. I think even POTUS said, get the blank out of the country if we don't want to stand up for our constitutional rights. But again, Memorial Day, originally Decoration Day, originated after the Civil War. But we still have people flying that Confederate flag, and they're not called un-American. Maybe it's just out west that it seems antiquated, but you can still drive by some people's yards and you still see that sign down south. Big C, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, that rebel flag, you see it in yards, Charlton. You see it on the back of pickups. You see it in some civic centers, Charlton, that those rebel flags still exist. And like I said, that's anti-American. When people talk about being American, the red, white, and blue is the American flag, Charlton.
Yeah.
The Star-Spangled Banner. That is the American flag. That is the national symbol of our great nation.
Yeah.
And when you can't just represent that flag, that you say you have to have another flag to represent, you might as well fly your neo-Nazi flag, Charlton.
Yeah.
Your white supremacy flag. And it's like you talk about the vitriol about Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick is still embraced by athletes.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick was part of the Golden State Warriors celebration when they swept the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah.
He was one of the members of the public that was in the locker room. He's
Yeah.
embraced by professional organizations still. He just can't get a job in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that we fight for so much. And for people, even the women's suffrage and the right to vote 100 years ago, even in the White House where POTUS is telling his own constituents that he thinks Pelosi is crazy. What a dog whistle to men who have sexist thoughts against women. And for women that say it's okay, you still have to stand up for yourself, because we just had down south, they want to overturn Roe v. Wade. I mean, that's on the voting blocks, Big C. It's crazy how sometimes people forget that we had freedoms that can always be taken away if we don't stand up for it. I want to get your thoughts real quick on this beautiful holiday weekend, Memorial Day weekend. I know we talk about, and we're being flippant, that Will Smith stole your dog. Maybe he did, I don't know. But I know he has a movie coming out called Aladdin. Now, when I was a young boy, Aladdin is a beautiful story. And even Steph Curry walks up to that lamp and he makes his wish. I remember when I was a young boy, not a young boy, but I was 19, and I met Barbara Eaton, who was part of I Dream of Jeannie. And I think Larry Hagman she called him Master. Well, she could wiggle her nose and make dreams come true. Now, Will Smith, everybody has their own version of Aladdin. It's about that lamp. Give me your feeling, because Will Smith looks a lot like you in the ad. Makes your thoughts.
Well, all these movies are being recreated, Charlton. There's nothing new again when you look at movies. I mean, Aladdin is just a spin that's been on a movie a half dozen times that we've seen on the big screen, Charlton.
Yep.
Will Smith has done a great job in all movie roles that he has played. And, everybody's trying to get out in this summer blockbuster scenario with the movies that are coming out, being re-released. And as they always say, everything old is new again.
Yeah, it's all the same. I want to get one more feeling on this, because I have dreams. We all have dreams, and everybody wants to be significant. Now, I know you may not tell me this. I know how the Wizard of Oz, no one ever saw the Wizard of Oz. They didn't know it was just a green puff of smoke. And if it was a green puff of smoke, I wonder why he was in Kansas. You would have thought he would have been in Colorado, Big C, with the green smoke, or maybe even California. But this thing about kids having a dream and believing that there's some Aladdin, some genie that can make your dreams come true. I just want to remind people, keep your imagination, especially young people. We got to get out and laugh, and laughter's good, but also having dreams that can come true. A lot like Big C Sports. It's a dream. It's coming true. I want to get your thoughts on why it's important for kids to dream as we're having graduations all over this great country. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, dreaming was the theme of Disneyland, of Walt Disney, when you wish upon a star. And kids have always dreamed. And you think about, I know with myself growing up as a child, I was always told sweet dreams as a child. And dream is imagination. You dream, you aspire. Aspire is another term for dreaming, Charlton. Yeah. You aspire to be something, so you're dreaming to get everywhere. When you think about every success story in life, you had to have a dream to get there. You had to have a thought process to make it happen. Yeah. And that's what dreaming is, Charlton. Every professional athlete dreams of being that professional athlete in their youth. Yeah. And that's how they achieve it. People say, I've achieved my dream. Yeah. So dream is a reality in life, Charlton. It's just those who are able to ascend and achieve it.
Yeah, and I want to tell, I got a good shout out I want to give to a friend back in Chicago, and he's watching the Cubs play today. Everybody in Chicago, you either a Bears fan, Cubs fan, Bulls fan, but they're playing Cincinnati. So I want to give a shout out to Jim Koceric, part of Sports Pro Hero with Big C Sports. I know he's at the Cubs game today, and told him I would do that also. But again, for everyone having dreams, go out and make them come true. Especially young kids, don't kill their dreams. Let them know that they can be anything they want to be. When it comes to a dream season, you think about Adam Pac-Man Jones. He retires from the NFL. And here's a guy that had that brazen mentality, that attitude that I can stop anybody. And I love that mentality, even though he cost him a lot of penalties, Big C. But even when someone like Adam Pac-Man Jones walks away, he still looks like he has some energy left in him, some game in him. But every now and then an injury or a body aches, you can retire too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, retirement is part of all professional sports. When you think about it, that day will come for everybody, whether it's by your own will or by the team's will. It gets to a point where teams no longer feel that you're worthy of that investment, Charlton, and they're going to go a different direction. Adam Pac-Man Jones has had a pretty decent NFL career. He's had a lot of problems on and off the field. Yeah. I think the thing that I will remember Pac-Man most for, as many penalties as he's gotten, was the one penalty that he got, and he didn't cause a problem when Joey Porter came on the field when they were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Adam pushed him off the field, and Adam got the penalty for it, and Joey was in an area where he didn't belong because he was a coach.
Yeah, he did have that. Can you give me your thoughts? Now, I'm going to say Jack Tatum. They remind me of each other, same mentality. Maybe some Ronnie Lott. Who does he remind you of, his mentality on the field, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he really, you're putting him up there with the greats. I don't think that he goes into that same category because he's not going to be considered for the Hall of Fame. Yeah. He was a guy who drew attention to himself more than anything else. He wasn't the dominant player because If he was a dominant player, Charlton, he wouldn't have had the need for all the penalties and all the
penalties.
antics.
Yeah.
When you're talking about guys who drew fear in people, those are the other guys that you named. I don't think many players feared Adam Jones in his career. He was a good, stable player.
Yeah. And you look at a running back on the other side of the ball, Fournette. I remember at LSU, he was a dominant player. People thought this is a can't miss, perhaps all-star player, running back, Pro Bowl player every year. We know what he's done for the running game in Jacksonville, and he feels that he's happy now to have a clean start with the Jags. I remember how dominant he was when they played New England in the AFC Championship game, and last year fell off a little bit. Are you still sold on him? I know you were high on him coming out of LSU. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he had some injuries last year and it slowed down his season. I think as long as the offense is functional, they got a quarterback that should help in the running game, because Nick Foles should take some of the pressure off of Leonard Fournette, getting the backers off the line of scrimmage. You can no longer put 8 in the box because you have a quarterback that's capable of getting the ball down the field. They're going to need to upgrade their receiving core, Charlton, because without better receivers, I think you can still stack the box on Fournette. But as long as he's healthy, he can still be a dominant running back in the NFL.
Let me give you another thought on a player on the West Coast, San Francisco. We talked about Nick Bosa in the past. And again, I just want to give you a shout out for your prescience when he was at Ohio State and he held up because of injuries. Well, he's injured again. We already brought it up earlier this week. But now they're saying there's some thoughts around San Francisco, 49er land, that he was damaged goods when he got drafted by the Niners. How does a guy get hurt in OTAs, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you talk about guys getting hurt in OTAs, right now the NFL has 79 players injured in OTAs.
Wow.
So it's becoming an epidemic in the NFL, not just Bosa, but throughout all the league, Charlton. You think about it, 79 players, and they have not even put on pads.
Wow.
So it's going to become a serious problem for the NFL, as it has always been. One of the problems with NFL players is that you spend so much time during the offseason in strengthening and conditioning, Charlton, is that your tendons and ligaments don't have a chance to get really relaxed when you come to these OTAs.
Yeah.
You're put under immense pressure in a short amount of time, Charlton, and we see these strains occurring with these athletes.
Yeah.
So the NFL is facing a huge problem over the next couple of years because of lack of contact, and you're forcing more of these OTAs where you're doing a lot of strength, not strength, but sprint and, changing direction drills.
Yeah.
This is causing a big problem for the teams. And so it's going to hurt them financially because it's going to go against the salary cap when you have some of these players that you're going to put on the injured reserve list. And I mean, a couple of dozen of them are already out for the entire year.
Yeah.
So Bosa, you speak about him because he went second in the draft.
Yeah.
But every team right now has been hit with this injury bug in these OTAs.
Well, that's amazing because, and I know that I've heard from athletes, there's still things that they can put in their bodies that make their muscle develop faster and stronger than the cartilage can support it. So oftentimes they'll pull some things, Big C. I'm not saying the cost for Bosa, but he sure does have a nice muscular frame for someone who just lifts iron, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everybody's taking supplements in this day and age of survival, and that's what sports is. It's all about survival. So you have to do all you can to tweak the curve and not be caught, as far as most athletes does. That's why they're always testing to see who is getting these PEDs. Patrick Peterson just got a 6-game suspension in Arizona. He's a defensive back, Charlton.
Yeah.
Players know what they can take and what they cannot take. It's just you're trying to mask whatever you're taking so that you don't get caught.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. And speaking of that, Big C, yesterday, Thursday, marked 10,000 days. 10,000 days since the last time the Detroit Lions won an NFL playoff game. That's the second longest active streak in the NFL behind the Bengals. And I know Stafford's making, $120+ million or more, and he's still the prodigal quarterback for the Detroit Lions. He's never on talk of, is he not the right guy? And I just get your thoughts on something. There's talk about Dak Prescott, and people are saying, should he get a max contract? Is he someone that can really be franchised for the Cowboys? He's been to more playoff games in the last 3 years than your good old boy up there in Detroit, Big C. Is Stafford. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, not just Stafford, but you think about the top 6 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. last season, at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott had been to more playoff games than all of them in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So when they ask whether Dak Prescott is worthy of a max contract, ask yourself, is Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco worthy of a max contract? And he's, I believe, only played 8 games in his NFL career as a starter in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford has never made the playoffs as a quarterback in Detroit.
Yeah.
So as you look up and down, and the last time Detroit made the playoffs, Barry Sanders was running the football.
Yeah.
Long time ago. Eric Kramer was playing quarterback. So Herman Moore was their top receiver. As you look at the Detroit Lions and the futility of this organization, and everybody going out saying, well, we have to pay these franchise quarterbacks. What is a franchise quarterback? To me, the terminology franchise quarterback is a guy who gets you into the playoffs consistently and has you with an opportunity to potentially win a championship. And we look at those, there was a few and far between.
Yeah.
But we look at these quarterbacks that you're paying the max contracts to. Last season, the top 6 of them in the NFL, and you're saying that they're all franchise quarterbacks. Even the cry about Aaron Rodgers. Everybody saying, well, he's the guy you want the ball in his hand the last 2 minutes. Well, we've seen in the last 2 seasons, it didn't make a difference.
No.
Why does the last 2 minutes mean so much when the first 58 minutes are irrelevant?
Yeah, that's true. And I think just a slight correction, I think that Caldwell got the Lions in the playoffs, and they lost to Dallas, ironically, and that's not too long ago. But for one season in the playoffs, and the guy is never on the trading blocks. There's never any question about whether he is a marquee quarterback, but there's always question about Dak. And even Derek Carr, that I like as a quarterback with the Raiders, he's played longer than Prescott. He's only led the Raiders to one playoff season, and he's getting $125 million. And people said, that's a good deal. Prescott, they're saying, well, he's not worth it. Can you draw one quarterback gets his team to the playoffs twice in 3 years, the other guy once in about 6 years, and people can't decipher who's better? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the knock on Dak Prescott is that he doesn't look like those other quarterbacks that were getting more money than him last year. It's even the talk, Carson Wentz, who, yes, the Eagles have won a Super Bowl since he's been on the team, but they made the playoffs the last 2 years, and he hasn't been the quarterback on the team.
Yeah.
So it's yet to be proven that Carson Wentz can lead a team into the playoffs, and they're not having any hesitation in talking about making him a max contract player in the NFL. I think the thing comes down to when they talk about players, and even the drawback against Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
People are saying Seattle didn't have to pay him the money. Well, Minnesota paid your cousin $84 million, and he can't win a game against a winning team in the NFL.
Yeah.
So as we look at that, and you can't help but see the common denominator, Charlton, when they're knocking quarterbacks about getting huge contracts. Russell Wilson, an African-American quarterback, Dak Prescott, an African-American quarterback in the NFL, Charlton. And nobody has cried about any white contract that has been paid to one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very salient point to make, and I ask mainstream media, say something if that's wrong. One more thought again, because there's talk about the Washington Redskins and their number 1 pick out of Ohio State and how good he looks in the pocket. I know it's just OTAs, but 50 touchdowns, that's doing something, especially when you're playing at a school like Ohio State and you have everybody gunning for you. It's not like they sneak up on anybody, but you think of Haskins, how solid he looked. I still tip my hat to Joe Theismann for saying, yes, you can wear the number 7. Not that he could have stopped it, but the fact that he shows, I want you to be successful. I want you to be loved and beloved by this great city. And I think he's on place to show people that he should have been number 1. But again, it's all about what team and what system. But give me your feelings on Haskins. You also thought he would be a star. Your thoughts?
Well, any quarterback that's drafted in the NFL, Charlton, you have to go to the right system that works for your particular talent, your skill set. That every year quarterbacks are drafted in the first round in the NFL, Charlton, and they fall by the wayside, and it's not going to be anything different this year. But, one of the things is going to a place that wants you, that players respect you when you come into the locker room, that you're not asked to be the pseudo-factor leader of the team. when you come into a solid organization, and the Skins were a solid team last year, Charlton, they were riddled by quarterback injuries. They lost three quarterbacks through the course of the season. No team is going to recover from that during the season, Charlton. Now that you have Haskins in the fold, and we've seen what can happen in that system if you have a good young quarterback. Alex Smith was leading the AFC East until his horrific leg injury last year. If Dwayne Haskins can stay healthy in that system, if they can upgrade their wide receiver corps because they have a set of triplets in the backfield that will take a lot of pressure off him running the ball and catching the ball out of the backfield. Kelly is an outstanding tight end that they have. If their receiving corps can be solid on the outside, Charlton, you can expect big things from Dwayne Haskins in the nation's capital.
Now, we talk about quarterbacks and even, what's going to happen with if you Darnold for New York. The one thing I see consistent about Darnold, I know he had that great game at USC when they run the Rose Bowl over Penn State. He had a great game. That's what got him really on the map. But he has a touchdown or interception problem with the Jets last year. He was also a touchdown interception problem with USC, his final season at USC. And unless he can cut down on leading the league in interceptions, do you see that he can make improvement? If he leads the league again in interceptions or among the top 5 interception throwers, do they turn the page on Darnold, or do they keep saying, hey, he's gonna need another couple of years? Big C, your thoughts?
No, I mean, they drafted him to be a franchise quarterback, Charlton. They're not going to walk away from Sam Darnold. In 4 years, you'll see Sam Darnold getting one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. What the New York Jets need to do for Sam Darnold is get him some receivers. And they picked up Le'Veon Bell, so they have the running back that they felt that they needed to take some of the pressure off of him, Charlton. But I don't know what Le'Veon Bell is going to do without having Antonio Brown and Juju Schuster out on the outside, Charlton, and also Jesse James at tight end. Those are the things you have to look at. Le'Veon Bell left the Steelers and went to the Jets, not those other 3 players, Charlton. So he doesn't have a support cast that he had when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers that Mike Tomlin put around him. He's going to the Jets, Charlton. They're trying to build that same type of, support cast, but they don't have the anchors on the outside that Pittsburgh had.
With Le'Veon Bell being there, if the Jets don't make the playoffs, will they give him the Dak Prescott treatment? See, Dak made the playoffs with the Cowboys, and people rooted against him. I think they won 13 games his rookie season, and we know Darnold didn't have success with the Jets. But you say he may get a max contract even if they don't make the playoffs, Big C, your thoughts?
Oh, he's going to get it, Charlton. When Sam Darnold comes up for contract in three years after this year, Charlton, he is not going to be having a problem being one of the top 5 paid quarterbacks in the NFL. The market will command it. He will get that, Charlton. It takes more than one player to get to the playoffs and even the Super Bowl. I mean, we just talked about Detroit not being able to get there for 10,000 days, and they did not make it against Dallas. That was a game that they lost the final game of the season that left them 9-7 and outside the playoffs.
And outside the playoffs,
so
that's right.
When you look at this situation with Darnold, he's already been named the chosen one for his quarterbacks in the NFL. He's been anointed in New York. If he does make the playoffs anytime within the next 3 years, his career is etched in stone in New York. He will never go anywhere.
Let me ask you about Josh Rosen, the forgotten one, was also called the chosen one out of UCLA and played for the Arizona Cardinals. I remember there was a game where he had 100-yard passing. Now he's in Miami, and they're saying he's going to have learned a lot from not being successful down in Arizona. He's on the East Coast now. He's in the AFC, so he has a chance to redeem himself. Do you think that he will be a bust, or do you think that maybe he did need another year or two like they usually give rookies like 10 years ago? Your thoughts?
Well, the greatest thing that happened to Josh Rosen was being traded to the Miami Dolphins, because now Josh Rosen gets to grow up with 3 quarterbacks that were in that draft class: Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, and Sam Darnold. All of these guys came out in the draft. They were both drafted ahead of Josh Rosen. So when you have something to prove as a quarterback that you were the first one out of that draft class to be traded, you told all those teams that passed on you, you were going to make them pay. This is a perfect storm for Josh Rosen. Now he can make 2 of those teams pay directly each year because he's going to play the Jets and the Bills twice a season, Charlton. So if anything motivates him and is going to catapult his career, he has those 2 teams right there that he'll face the rest of his career if he's successful in Miami.
Final question. Jackson, out of Baltimore, led them to a playoff game last year. They were upended by the LA Chargers. but this kid showed that he makes you change your defensive coordinator strategy. No more can you just step back and wait for a quarterback who cannot get out of the pocket. He showed his downfield running ability. He could also pass the ball. And here's a guy that didn't start the season, but he replaced the Super Bowl winning quarterback, and Flacco sent him back into Denver. With one or at least half a season under his belt, what can we expect out of Jackson now that he's seen the NFL? And I think he went, at one point, he was 7-1 against them. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you look at Lamar Jackson, what he has to work more so, Charlton, is his pocket presence. You know, you can run in the NFL, but you get figured out.
Yeah.
Michael Vick ran.
Yeah.
He got figured out. You got to spend some time in the pocket, Charlton. You got to be able to get the ball to the open receivers.
Yeah.
You have to use the run as your secondary entity, not your first form of attack.
Right.
RG3 was the same way, Charlton. The NFL is a pocket passing league. They protect the quarterbacks now, Charlton. You have to learn how to get a quick release, and that's what Lamar Jackson should have spent the entire offseason on, is working on a quicker release out of the pocket.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to football. I know we have NBA basketball. We're going to touch on that when we come back after the break. There's so much that I look forward to in the world of sports, and I just appreciate how we can talk about all the sports year-round. It's not a seasonal thing for Big C Sports like it is for other networks. We're going to take a Big C pause, and we'll come right back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C pause on the Big C Sports Network, and you can follow Big C Sports every Monday through Friday. In fact, you can follow us 7 days a week on the iHeartRadio network, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us on YouTube Speaker, also Comcast Xfinity for our television. We really thank our sponsors for their support in growing Big C Sports. I want to get your thoughts on what happened in the NBA when you think about this whole move towards Saturday. It really is for Toronto, in fact, for the whole country of Canada. They really need this because Toronto has everything going for it right now. It's like having a full hand in a poker game. This is theirs to win. Milwaukee has to swim against the current. They got to get 2 wins in order to get to the NBA Finals. For the first time in the history of this franchise up in Toronto, I want to get your feeling going into the Saturday's game, because you said players got to be loose going into a game. Most fans think they got to be tight. Give me your thoughts on how Toronto must be feeling. Your thoughts?
You know, Toronto has been the better of the 2 teams throughout the series. Milwaukee got off to an epic start in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
Toronto didn't play well, but Kawhi Leonard has played consistently throughout this. You know, I think Toronto's bench has been the difference in this game when you look at the productivity that they've gotten off the bench, and especially in the last game with Van Fleet.
Yeah.
I think the first couple of games he was bothered by his wife being in labor, Charlton, and giving birth to their second child, Charlton. But since, you know, giving birth to their second child, and he's come back to join the team after game 2, Charlton, in that series once it started in Toronto, he's been a whole different player, Charlton, coming off the bench, and he had 27 points in the last game.
Yeah.
We see how everybody has stepped up. You know, they had 6 players in double figures, you know, versus Milwaukee. But number one thing, Charlton, is that they figured out what Milwaukee does defensively.
Yeah.
And then you play that 3-man zone across the free throw line when Giannis gets the basketball, Charlton. Giannis has been given every opportunity to get to the rim by the officials. I mean, the 3, 4, 5-step rule is in play for Giannis.
Yep, it is.
And he's going to get to the rim. It's hard to stop that. But, you know, Toronto has done a great job defending him. You got to like, you know, what Nick Nurse has done coaching defensively. I mean, he hasn't gotten enough credit for the adjustments that he has made in the lineup.
Yeah.
And when you look at Kawhi Leonard, he's like a quiet assassin out on the floor.
Yeah.
You know, he plays with an even keel throughout the game, Charlton. He doesn't get up, he doesn't get down, regardless of the score. He just goes out there and you know, he shows you no emotion. He's just constantly knocking down jump shots, Charlton. And when the game was critical, and he rose up and knocked down the 3-pointer on Lopez, Charlton,
yeah,
you can see the steam go out of the Milwaukee Bucks at that point.
Yeah, and you know, when you have a guy who can get you 27 points a game, and Leonard and Siakam can get you 17, Lowry can get you 14, Gasol, he drops in 16, and then Ibaka can get you 15. And I wanted to spend a little bit of thought on Milwaukee, because Giannis is dropping in 28 points a game in regular season, Middleton 18, and also Bledsoe at 16. Malcolm Brogdon had that turnover late in the game last night, and that cost them. And George Hill gets you about 11 points. I thought Middleton was afraid to shoot. I thought Bledsoe, there were times when they just pulled up, and I know you say you got to relax, but this team didn't look relaxed when they were going for the kill. This is a situation where Golden State, and I've seen it over the last 5 seasons, even when they're down 18 on the road or at home, they get relaxed and they take their shots. I think last night, Giannis was trying to dominate because a lot of other guys were afraid. Did that make any sense, your thoughts?
Well, I think Giannis is pressing. I don't know if he's trying to dominate, but he's pressing.
Yeah.
He's frustrated because his shots have not been falling from the outside.
Yeah.
So he's been trying to create next to the basket, Charlton. But the defense that Toronto has put up against him
is good.
Has been really effective. The biggest problem is that they're playing outside in.
Yep.
You got 3 7-footers playing outside the arc, Charlton, for Milwaukee. So one of them take a shot, Charlton. Who's going to get the rebound? You automatically got defenders in place to get the rebound.
Yeah.
And so you got a size advantage defensively for Toronto. I think that more than anything is that Giannis has been exposed that he's not the complete player that everybody thought that he was, that he should be the league's MVP. I think that by having that selection after the playoffs, Charlton, has really showed that he is not the best player in the Eastern Conference that Kawhi Leonard is.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Such a good point you just made that there's a bias against Canada. Let's just be honest. That's a market that has 7 million people in the metropolitan area. That's the size of the Bay Area. But the Canada is not as large as the United States, 350 plus million people. But that's the same Kawhi Leonard that we saw out here in Oakland when he played for Coach Pop down in San Antonio. And he played with Duncan and Ginobili and all those good old boys. So he's been there before. Giannis hasn't had the chance to go through the fire of having a coach like Pop and also having some other Hall of Famers around him. That make any sense?
Well, I think when it gets to basketball, it really does. When you look at LeBron James, what Hall of Famers and great coaches did he have in Cleveland, Charlton? When you look throughout the NBA over time, what Hall of Famers and great coaches have players had that have won championships? Steve Kerr was not a Hall of Famer. When he started winning championships with the Warriors, he will be a Hall of Famer now.
Yeah.
But as you look over time and teams that have won championships, Eric Spoelstra, he had no coaching experience when he took over the Miami Heat. He had been an assistant coach.
Yeah.
He won championships. So I think it comes down to the player. Is the stage too big for a player at a particular time? I think it's been too big for Giannis because he's trying to live up to the media hype, other than living up to his teammates' expectations.
Yeah, when you go 4-1 and you're not passing the open guy, I can understand that point. I can see it both ways. I can't wait for it to happen. I want to get one more thought on you because we talked about it about a week ago, and it seems to be stories now. People say sports and politics don't mix. Well, with this entertainment and sports mix, because Drake has been a feature on every show, and I think he's a great ambassador for Canada. I think he's almost like anybody else in L.A. All the Hollywood stars turn out. Where there's a big fight, all the Hollywood stars turn out. The music moguls turn out. I think what Drake is doing is fine, but I want to get your thoughts on why so many people hate that, even though it's going to help him sell more records if he needs to help. Your thoughts?
Well, he doesn't need to help selling records, but I think when Canadians and American media thinks about Canadians, they probably were thinking about Celine Dion, Justin Bieber, and Bryan Adams, entertainers of that nature, Shania Twain.
Yeah.
But, here's Drake, Charlton, who is a local kid from that region. He's a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
The media has made Drake what he is. Drake, we don't get Toronto Raptors games on American TV throughout the regular season, Charlton.
Right.
So who knows what the antics and actions of Drake have been for the past couple of years in Toronto, sitting courtside at the game. He just didn't all of a sudden show up courtside. He's
right.
been there.
Yeah.
So when I said earlier that the producers and the directors are the ones that are highlighting Drake and making Drake this spectacle, Drake has always been there. If Drake was a nuisance in that organization, Charlton, this would have been stopped by the team and security a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I
But he has
agree.
not been.
Yeah.
It's the media needing a story. So let's take our fingers and point it at the black guy on the sideline, saying that he's going overboard.
Right.
That he's in an area that he shouldn't be in, even though the organization has embraced Drake.
No, they love him. I think he does a great job. And plus, he had a concert last night. It's just great. I love the theme of Toronto. It's just an amazing city. So, Big C, as we look at the world of hockey, now we talked about prop betting, and someone got the wind of it, and I guess San Jose stopped benefiting against St. Louis. So we have Lord Stanley's Cup coming up, over the weekend. The holiday weekend is going to start Monday, I believe. We have $100,000. How much hockey fan Scott Berry can win if the St. Louis Blues win the Lord Stanley's Cup on a trip to Vegas in January. Big C, he put down $400 on the Blues at odds of 250 to 1, and they were the last place in the NHL at that time, and had never won Lord Stanley's Cup. That's called a bargain, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you go to Vegas, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. So
not necessarily.
I guess he told his wife to spend $400 on dinner. But now all of a sudden he's like, I got this ticket. If we win, we got $100,000. But this is what gambling is all about, Charlton. You take a chance at a long shot. And that's what he did, being out there, and he took a chance on the worst team in the NHL at that time.
Yep.
And he said, I got this extra $400. Why not?
Why not?
So you think about it, being able to turn $400 into $100,000, Charlton, it's not a bad 4th of July.
Yeah, not a bad at all, Big C. So with the Stanley Cup playoffs starting on Monday, you have goalies Rask and Binnington. They're going to impact this series. It's amazing. It's almost having a good defender. You talked about Giannis maybe being in a little over his head. And I think it's just because of that one player that he's facing. I think it's Kawhi Leonard. I still think Giannis is a dominant player. But I would say if you take Kawhi Leonard and you put him on the top guy on anybody's team, they used to do that with Dennis Rodman back in the day. He's going to make a lot of guys change the direction. But if you look at the goalies in the Stanley Cup, that's going to decide also the tenor of this series. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Rask and Binnington, Charlton, have just been stalwarts. Rask, a rookie goalie. I mean, Binnington, a rookie goalie for St. Louis.
Yep.
36-12-1 since being the starting, goalie during the regular season and playoffs. That's just an outstanding run that he has been on. You think about he's 12-0, 12 wins in the chase for the Stanley Cup, looking for 4 more.
Yep.
And Rask with the best goal against percentage of all goalies, Charlton, in the playoffs, less than 2 goals a game that he has given up. So this will be a shootout throughout this playoff series, Charlton, but it's going to come down to who can make the most saves.
Well, you think about Rask, you mentioned a 1.84 goals against, a 0.94 saves percentage in the playoffs. And, this series, I know St. Louis, you kind of feel for them as a city. They've had the flooding that's run through Missouri, and the beautiful arch there that was actually came together at a certain time of day when the sun was hot enough to heat up the material that they made the arch out of. But that city lost NFL football. They had gained it from the Rams, from Los Angeles, and then they went back to LA. But I don't know what they're doing with that dome. It was still a beautiful dome. It wasn't old. And we know
it's still there. You think about something. This is the city that's lost 2 NFL franchises.
Yeah.
They lost the St. Louis Cardinals that are now the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
And the Los Angeles Rams that have gone back to LA and become the Los Angeles Rams again.
Yeah, that's a very good point there, Big C. So I would just say my heart is with St. Louis just for that reason alone. But I think Boston is a different breed of cat, even though the Bruins. And I know that everybody wants to see a Cinderella story. I just don't know how it can happen against a team in Boston that they just sweep everybody like they have brooms sweeping out the garage, Big C. And I hope we get a 7-game series, but I don't know if that's possible, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Boston's had a lengthy layoff, Charlton, since handling the Hurricanes in the Eastern Finals, Charlton. So this is a team. Can you get too much rest in hockey? If you hold your ice too long, it has a tendency to melt. and so will they be a little sluggish and soft when it comes down to playing the Blues? This is a team that's hungry. They're playing with house money.
Yeah.
This is a team that was not supposed to be there. The worst team at the beginning of the year in the NHL.
Yeah.
No one gave them any consideration for the playoffs. So when you think about a team that's on a miraculous run and also in a chase of destiny, and then you also look at the city of Boston. It's been, 137, 138 days now since the last time they won a championship. But they might still be a little hungover. Who knows?
Are you assuming that people in Boston get hungover, Big C? Is that what you're saying? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, with all this heat, you got to take something down. All that brown stuff in glasses is not ice cream.
Yeah, I know it does get very humid in Boston, and they have a lot of fun with their sports teams. I really look forward to seeing something good come out of it, and we know it's all fair in love and war. Would you believe, I know we talk about basketball and hockey, WNBA, it kicks off tonight. I think it's the most fundamental basketball, but the least watched basketball of the two sports, of course, NBA, WNBA. But I still think it's a great brand of basketball, and I know they play them in the major arenas. And I hope that the women can have more attention given to them this year, because they have been some really good basketball played over the years. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's excellent basketball, Charlton. These are top-flight athletes that have always played in the WNBA, some of the best collegiate players that have ever played here in America and around the world.
Yeah.
The WNBA has been a stalwart league since it's been on. I mean, it gets national coverage. Broadcast-wise, it would be nice if they could find a way to make more of these young ladies household names.
Yeah, and that's just marketing. If they can do it for a guy like Bryce Harper, $330 million, Machado got $300 million, and then Trout $430 million, and you still have the Angels. They're hanging around the best of the AL West. I mean, it's not about the money of play people. It's about the chemistry with these teams, and I hope that the ladies are put on TV more. It's giving them the same kind of market share. WNBA kicks off. Dallas Wings versus the Atlanta Dream. Indiana Fever, New York Liberty. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, these ladies have been working all spring getting ready for their kickoff season. I mean, think about New York. They might be the best basketball team when you think about the New York Liberty. Might be the best basketball team in the state of New York professionally.
That's true. Hey, not even being silly. Why not the Knicks try out some of the ladies for the Liberty and put them in Knicks uniforms? At least they know what a championship game looks like. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's the closest you're going to come to getting a championship New York basketball-wise.
Yeah.
You even look at the Phoenix Mercury, Charlton, and you look at that outstanding organization out there led by Brittany Griner.
Yeah.
They have the best professional basketball team in the city of Phoenix.
Yeah.
So when you think about the WNBA, everybody wants to say the NBA, how fantastic and great it is.
Right.
You have to look at some of these cities, Charlton, that the female teams are much greater than the male teams. And not only that, the city of Seattle used to have a professional organization.
Yeah.
They're now called Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yep.
And you think about the Seattle Storm of the WNBA. They're last year's champ, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're going to kick off on Monday, opening up the season for themselves. But, the city of Seattle has a professional basketball champ once again, and is not the Seattle Supersonics.
Yeah, and I wish them nothing but the best up there at, I believe it's Key Arena. And Seattle is a beautiful city, a lot like Toronto, just different parts of the continent. You think about how much sports has meant to that great city in Seattle. And we talked about St. Louis, how we felt for St. Louis losing the Cardinals as a football team. And then also, I remember Neil Lomax was from Portland State, and I think he played for the Arizona Cardinals at a time way back in the day, Big C. And then you had, of course...
He started with the St. Louis Cardinals where he was drafted. He ended his career with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, so he's kind of that migration, that great Northwest losing teams and then going elsewhere. Arizona benefits a lot. So the Storm and the Mercury, I wish them nothing but the best. I think the WNBA is a very good brand, but they don't have a lot of slam dunks. And slam dunks get showed more than the right pass and the right screen that make any sense, Big C.
Well, the NBA is a highlight reel, and that's been Milwaukee's Achilles heel, is that they tried to make highlight plays instead of making fundamental plays.
Yeah.
And that's where they've been losing out.
Yeah, they've been losing out. And speaking of winning, 2019 NCAA softball tournament action this weekend. Number 1, Oklahoma versus number 16, Northwestern. That would not be a bad football schedule if we had that. Give me your thoughts. Number 1, Oklahoma. I know they had that long winning streak that was snapped, but they still look like a team that's determined to get back to championship status. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this winning streak was snapped at 41 games last week, but they're back in the groove, Charlton, and they're the most dominant team right now in ladies baseball.
Florida State, number 4, versus number 13, Oklahoma State. That would also be a pretty good football matchup. It would be nice if we could have some football games that are playing the same way this college softball is going. Give me a feeling Florida State. I know they're down in the hotbed of talent in Florida, but Oklahoma State plays pretty good ball too. I still like number 4 Florida State in that one. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Florida State is on the brink of elimination. They've one more loss, Charlton. They'll be out of the tournament, and they were last year's national champion.
Yeah, and I think they have, because of last year's national champion, they'll most likely have a final. I'm just going to say they're going to come back because they have that pedigree that's done it before. You look at number 8, Alabama, and number 9, Texas. That would be a great matchup. In fact, it happened in the Rose Bowl back in the day when the Bama won for a national championship. And I was going to get your feeling on, does Alabama softball have anywhere near, do they even know they play softball down in Alabama with all the football powers? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about the dominance of softball in the SEC and also men's baseball, you know, the SEC is probably the most dominant conference in all of college sports, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you look at the participation financially that they put into their sports, the backing, you know, that region gives fan-wise.
Yeah.
They don't play the empty houses. They play the packed houses regardless of the sport that they're playing in. So you have a lot of enthusiasm behind all these athletes.
Well, that seems to be the case, that a lot of them, they just have what it takes. That obvious, it's obvious that you have people that have gone on to different programs and they get a lot of money. So they put a lot of money into what they do down there. And I know it's going to be the same thing for all the major sports that they have, especially in that Southeast Conference. And I wish them well. My favorite team right now, because I'm a West Coast boy, Big C. I know you don't like the guys out here in California, but UCLA, they're playing James Madison. I would not want to see that as a football lineup, but I think the Bruins will have the edge in this one, Big C. Your thoughts? They're ranked number 2.
Well, in a football game, James Madison might take UCLA with the tough past couple of seasons that they've had, Charlie. So
Yeah.
they may not want to see that matchup either. But the Lady Bruins have always had a dominant baseball program, Charlton, out there on the West Coast.
Yep.
And when you think about James Madison, I think they're the only team left in the tournament that weren't ranked coming in.
Coming into it, that's amazing how softball can change things for people. Number 5, you have Florida versus number 12, Tennessee. 2 SEC programs going to battle, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it seems to be a similar theme of the teams that you're naming off. I've seen a lot of teams that you said that are from the South, that are from the SEC. So when you talk about, is there a following in the SEC, it has to be. When you look at how all of these programs have been represented in these postseason tournaments, we go back to football. The SEC was represented there. We go back to the Final Four in basketball. In the whole NCAA tournament of March Madness. Look at the SEC representation in that, Charlton. Now we're talking about women's softball, and look how many SEC teams are still vying for the championship.
Number 3, Washington Huskies versus number 14, Kentucky. Pac-12 got to get that win, and I'm thinking that they most likely will be in the number 3 ranked. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you just said another SEC team, Charlton, in Kentucky. They have to go out and play the Washington Huskies on the West Coast. So when you look at the SEC, they're traveling, Charlton. They're playing everybody. They're not ducking anybody. And you got 2 representations from the West Coast, Charlton, when you talk about UCLA and the University of Washington in the Pac-12. But I think you've already named off 6 SEC teams, Charlton, versus 2 Pac-12 teams.
Well, hold on. We're not done. We got number 6, Arizona. They play ladies softball down in the desert versus number 11, Ole Miss. This is a Pac-12 SEC football scheduled game that should happen in the next 10 years at least. Your thoughts?
Well, you keep bringing up the SEC, so there must be something dominant about this conference. But as you think about it, I mean, this being out, this pure attrition numbers. I mean, you got to respect what that conference is doing baseball-wise. So when you're talking about these ladies growing up, Charlton, you know, aspiring to be college baseball players, and these programs having the father enough, Charlton, to build these great stadiums for them to play in and develop them to their best athletic ability.
Yeah, they're doing that. I hate to say it, Big C. Number 7, Minnesota versus number 10, LSU. I think LSU is from the SEC also, Big C.
I mean, you struck on a common theme tonight. I'm going to give you credit for that, Charlton. I think you're trying to find some good favor where you can move down south here with sports is king.
Yeah. They say they leave the light on for you. I wish all the ladies the best of success. When you think about baseball, there'll be a wide open field Sunday, the 103rd running of the Indianapolis 500. For the fans, all 33 drivers bring compelling narrative to the table in Sunday's big race. And I believe they use real milk for the winner, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you can't be lactose intolerant and win the Indianapolis 500. I mean, one of the greatest spectacles in sports, Charlton. We talked about that last week. When you have a bucket list of sports, you start with the Masters, and this is over a 6-week span. That you have the Masters, you have the Kentucky Derby, and you have the Indianapolis 500 something. You know, Charlton, These are events that are in the same place every year for the past over 100 years.
Yeah.
You think about that. Augusta, Churchill Downs, and Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Charlton. Over 100 years of illustrious history at these events.
Yep.
And you think about the racers that are there, Charlton, some of the greatest epic races of all time.
Yeah.
That you don't want to blink because you'll miss a lap. I've had the good fortune of being at the Indianapolis 500, Charlton.
Yeah.
And if you love the smell of gasoline, get ready to get hot.
Big C, you Southern boys got to find better air freshener. If you're using gasoline as an air freshener, please don't light a match, Big C, if you understand what I'm saying. And speaking of lighting a match, $3.9 million compensation credited President Mark Arias' NCAA 2017. Also, it was reported that the NCAA, believe this, had to pay out $56.6 million in legal expenses for that same year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about the NCAA having to fight lawsuits, Charlton.
Yeah.
They have to spend some $57 million in litigation. So you think about that this organization is doing a lot of wrongdoing. If you got to spend $57 million, Charlton, on litigation, this 2 years ago, 2017.
Yeah.
Why can you not afford to pay student athletes? I think that $57 million would have been well spent to disperse it through all the universities out there, Charlton, participating in the NCAA that Mark Emmert is governing.
Yep.
And spent that money to pay these collegiate athletes and not be giving it to the law firm.
Yeah, but you know how those good old boys do a lot of shenanigans. If you give that money to guys who help you earn the money, who's going to pay the lawsuits? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, who cares about the lawsuits? Let's take care of the student athlete, then we don't have to worry about these lawsuits.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about the sanctions coming down, about universities and coaches suing, Charlton.
Yeah.
If you pay the athletes, then you have an even surface, Charlton, against everybody. You have an equitable situation. And you don't have to worry about players getting money under the table.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about these lawsuits. You don't have to worry about paying these law firms, Charlton. Just pay the damn athletes.
Just pay the athletes. That'd be too much like right, Big C. Final couple of thoughts. Just 2 seasons ago, after losing 100 games, the Minnesota Twins have the best record in Major League Baseball at 33-16. They're also leading the Major League with 98 home runs, and they have 4 players with double-digit home runs, and not one of them are Bryce Harper. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this has just been a miraculous turnaround in the Twin Cities, Charlton. This was a team that was led by Joe Mauer for years, and he finally retired. Paul Molitor had gotten them into the playoffs, Charlton, 3 years ago. When they had that 100-loss season, they got rid of their Hall of Fame manager, who was a former player with the organization. But right now, Charlton, they've seemed to found something special up there in Minnesota, although the mosquitoes haven't come out yet, so that might have something to do with it while they're hitting home runs out. Give another month, and them little bloodsuckers will have everybody in the lineup weak.
Well, land of the Great Lakes.
This is great for baseball. To have small market teams that are playing at this type of level, Charlton, that you're leading the league in home runs as well as wins. And no one knows. Everybody talks about Boston, Houston, Chicago, Milwaukee, New York, the Dodgers. And here's the Minnesota Twins, Charlton, with the best record in baseball.
And that's what makes baseball great. You don't have to be a large market just to have people turn out. Tonight's schedule is big for this weekend, Big C, this beautiful Memorial Day weekend. You have Miami at Washington, the Dodgers at Pittsburgh, San Diego at Toronto. Love the city of Toronto. Detroit at New York. The Mets, METS, Mets. Tampa Bay at Cleveland. Boston at Houston. Philadelphia at Milwaukee. Well, that city's nervous. Big C, they're as nervous as the basketball player that was thrown to the ground because he wanted some cough syrup. Big C, your thoughts on Milwaukee fans?
Well, Charlton, right now Milwaukee is a team that they're not going to fold their tent, Charlton. They're going to come out there with great intensity to play basketball, But when you look at the Brewers, you got Christian Yelich up there, Charlton. This is a team that's right in the thick of things in the National League Central. And they're going to catch their stride. They're going to be in a heated battle with the Cubs all year long. Yeah,
they'll be there all year long, Big C. Chicago White Sox at Minnesota. Atlanta Braves at St. Louis. Baltimore at Colorado. Seattle is at Oakland. And again, Oakland's going to be getting a new arena too. A new stadium just downtown near Jack London Square. Pretty soon, in the next couple of years. You have Texas at Los Angeles Angels. Big C, Trout doesn't look like he's worth $430 million yet. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at baseball really doesn't count until after, July 4th, Charlton.
Yeah.
Well, once we get to that point of the year. I mean, we're looking at the Twins right now with the best record in baseball. Not many of the proponents feel that will last, Charlton, but only time will tell.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at the hit streaks that are going on in baseball, we look at the leaders and the non-leaders. Once we get past July 4th, Charlton, then the real baseball starts.
The real baseball starts. Arizona's at San Francisco in matchup games. We have New York Yankees at the Kansas City Royals. And my friend Jim with Sports Pro Hero, Cincinnati at Chicago at Wrigley Field. What a great ballpark. And I just love what we do with Big C Sports this great Memorial Day weekend. You can follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube, also Spreaker, and Comcast Xfinity. We thank all of our sponsors for their support, and we hope that everybody stays safe this holiday weekend as you're out, whether you're barbecuing or don't let anyone drink and drive. That's such a dumb thing to do, so don't let that happen, and we hope that everyone has fun. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, St. Louis has been on a drought. I know it's been 49 years since they've been in the Stanley Cup, even though the Rams won a Super Bowl. But if the St. Louis Blues can pull out this series that's going to start on Monday against the Boston Bruins and end 49 years of futility in the NHL for the St. Louis Blues, what a great move for the NHL and professional hockey.
That would be a great move indeed. And for all the people who've ever fought for this country, those who are gone and still here, we just want to give you a big thank you from Big C Sports. We appreciate you all over the universe. And you can appreciate it too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.